Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence, with Just Ask Podcast Live. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. And you know, I always try to make sure that when you tune in, it's something that you may need or can use for someone else in the family, a neighbor, just things, period, that are resourceful for people. And so today, my special guest is a returning guest, which I always enjoy this gentleman every time he comes. So, of course, I want to go ahead to that split screen so you can meet him, because you know who he is. You know, when you hear from the lawyers, you know you want to hear from some of the top-notch lawyers that know a little bit about everything. This gentleman here is certified eldercare lawyer, Jim Schuster. Well, hello there, Jim Schuster.
Well, good to be back with you, Marsha, and all the vast listening audience.
Thank you for being here today. You know, it's been a while, but we always look forward to having you join us.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and really, I think that you supply so much good information to people. I'm just glad to be part of your crew, if you will.
Well, thank you. So now, you know, Jim, as usual, when you come, you have a vast array of information that's dealing with eldercare law and, just knowing that people are out there going through a lot of things right now with the pandemic and job changing, job shortage, finances. The whole gamut is at stake right about now. But what I'm really concerned about, or one of the things I'm concerned about in particular, is eldercare. So, you know, it's like we may not say too much, but when people are stressed out about working and finances and things like that, listen, the elders get thrown under the rug sometimes, and some may be abused and some may be neglected. And then those who are doing well for themselves just have questions as well about some things they should have in place. So today, what is our conversation going to be about pretty much today?
Well, what I'd like to share is some common legal problem areas. And what I mean by that is areas which legal problems arise. Not that everybody's going to have a problem in one of these situations, but it is very common for them to arise. And I always say, if you know the question to ask, that's as good as knowing the answer. So if you know the problem, then you know enough to ask to avoid it.
Okay. So, almost 5 common problems. Okay, so let's start off. What do you think is problem number 1?
Well, number 1 is, once again, I deal in the area of elder aging. And what happens a lot of times is when, let's say, a husband or wife has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's with a spouse. And one of the most common responses that it comes up with is, oh, I need a new will. Well, that's the first area. Yes, a will is a very important, necessary thing. A will says who should get all your stuff when you die. Should all the kids share equally, or are you going to give a special gift to one or the other? That's a very important thing to say, but it helps not at all with the issues of aging, lifetime aging. A will simply helps. That's what I call planning for death instead of for life. That's the first area. And if you want me, Marsha, I can just roll right through and you can sort of say, whoa, slow down, I got a question here.
Okay, I tell you, so we're going to roll right through. Okay, so planning
for... lawyers are.
Right, but we got 28 minutes, so we're going to use all of ours. But when you say planning for death, what does that actually mean?
It means who gets your stuff when you die, and essentially people recognize it as getting a will done. Now, it's true that many people go for a revocable living trust, which also can be a planning for death vehicle, which says who gets my stuff when I die. The other way of planning for death is, for example, putting beneficiaries or who gets your bank account when you die, okay? Matter of fact, I had a client just who saw us and then just went into the bank credit union, and they said, oh yes, well, we can make this account the beneficiary of your trust. And as soon as you start talking about beneficiaries of your account, you're talking about what happens when you die and doesn't do anything at all while you're alive. Okay? So
it really makes a person nervous when you do it like that. But that's what most people do. Don't they normally put people on their accounts just to say, well, in case something happens, I'm unable to pay my bills, my son or my daughter or someone can step in and pay the bill?
That's exactly the question to ask in my book. That's the most important question. So when somebody needs help, should they put a son or daughter on their account? Now, typically, that means that when they put them on the account, they're a joint owner, which is a big problem. What they really should do is put them on the account as an agent or using a power of attorney, okay? So there's a big distinction there.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You look good, girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork of our paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Hey. Okay.
If you love me enough to tolerate my perfect little pets and all their glorious dander, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know we left off on, the bank information as far as like when someone is preparing to pass on and they want to make sure that someone is handling their financial affairs. I think now where we leave off on that, Jim, more or less, are we saying that it's okay?
Yeah, that's good. Well, no, that is not the best way to do it. Let me just give you an example. And this is actually the second area where your inheritance plans conflict with your life care plans. Now, here's what I mean. Suppose that a lady has a will where it says her 3 children inherit everything equally, okay? Now she has her eldest daughter help her out, be her executive assistant. So what does she do? She adds her to her bank account. And I'm saying that's a dangerous thing to do. Now, the daughter's not a thief, so she's not going to steal from mom. But what happens is, let's say daughter, over the period of years, helps mom, and she gets no help whatsoever. And finally, when mom passes away, she says, okay, kids, the bank says this bank account is mom. Mom added me as a joint owner, so therefore it's all mine. And they pull out the will and say, well, wait a minute, the will says that you're supposed to share everything equally. And the lady says, sorry, it's all mine. Go find your money wherever you hid it in the time that you didn't have time to help mom out and me. So the real issue, Marcia, is if you put somebody on your bank account, or let's say, whatever it is, you name it, as an owner, they own it as soon as you die, and they don't have any need to share it with anybody else. And you know what happens then? The other kids go hire a lawyer and they fight it out in court. So that's an
Yeah.
example of inheritance plans conflicting with life care plans. The other part of that is sometimes it isn't even a will. What happens? What if mom says, honey, I want you to have my car after I pass away? So the daughter, as soon as mom dies, she goes to the Secretary of State, has the car transferred to her. That can cause big conflicts. Also, the other oral plan is what if mom, buys daughter a car and says, okay, we'll drive it, we'll use it together, and when I die, it's all yours. These are the kind of things that if they're oral or they conflict with the will, you're talking just big legal battles after mom passes away.
So really, people should put things in writing when they're giving things away to their children, and so that it'll be prepared. It'll be somewhere documented that yes, this car was a gift or is given to Marcia in my passing, so that the other siblings don't fall out the window.
And I would say the best way to say that, once again, speaking as a lawyer, the best way to do this through a legal document, a will or trust, or maybe even a contract, okay? Speaking as a lawyer, that's the best way to do it, okay?
But what is it if a person doesn't feel like they can afford a lawyer? What's what they call the cheap man's way? What is it? The poor man's way?
I think you just have to do a lot of reading on that, do a lot of research, because what we're talking about is avoiding the children becoming lifetime enemies, never speaking to each other again. We're talking about perhaps fighting it out in probate court. I would suggest that those major life issues are worth some little bit of money. But if a person can't afford a lawyer, then do your research and just be very careful. If you say anything oral, here's a good tip: tell the other children. So if you say to your, helpful daughter, I want you to have the car, the bank account, don't let the daughter be the bearer of the news. Do it yourself. Tell the other children what your plans and thoughts are.
Right.
And that should help head off a big battle.
Right,
Okay?
right. What's the inheritance plan conflict?
The conflict is when they have a will, just putting it simply, they have a will or trust that says all the kids inherit everything equally. But then when the life care agreement comes in, and the mother says, oh, I want you to have this bank account, or I want you to have this car, that isn't inheriting equally. That's giving one child special attention. So that's the conflict between the will and the life care plan. Now, as you can tell, I would say everything should be in writing. You're right.
Right. I was going to ask that. Because what if a mom buys one kid a home and, the other kid's doing fine, and then the mom passed, and then there's a will that says split everything equally, but the money that she used to buy the home for the son seems to be an issue because, it's only $50,000 left. She used the other $50,000, to buy the oldest son a home, and the second son saying, well, it's only $50,000 left. Should it be something in writing that the mother gave the first son the $50,000 for a deposit on a home, and then that will be decided amongst the courts that if it was $100,000, you got your 50, and now the other half is the youngest son?
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
No, you're right, because one thing we always say, the history of law the law is written through history. You're quite right. This has happened over the centuries, over the ages. And the legal question comes up: was that $50,000 what we call an advance on inheritance, or was it a separate gift? And maybe we can remember the parable of the vineyard owner, and he hired workers, and he paid the ones who came in at 4 o'clock the same as the ones who worked all day. So is the parent making a special gift, or is the parent saying, no, I want this to be your inheritance right now? That communication does have to be made, either in writing or tell the children what your thinking is. Otherwise, they will be fighting it out in court.
Of course, because now we're talking about cash money versus material. So it's money left over, and it's like, well, who knows that she actually purchased the home? Like you said, if nothing's in writing, and the kid's bragging in the first place, "Mom helped me get my home," but then mom passes so many months later, and then there's still money in the account. The oldest child still feel like he or she is privy to some of that money as well, when they could just say, this was fine enough. But what I find hard to believe is that as children, everybody's fine as long as they're children. But when they become adult children, it's just mayhem. It's all kinds of chaos, and you end up destroying complete families over inheritance, whether it's a car, a house, or money. It's always going to be something.
That's
so
right.
it's really bad. But let me ask you something, Jim. One of my concerns here is elder abuse, signs of elder abuse.
Absolutely. Now, let's just say that I think here's the situation. Let's say that mom is in the care of the son, or maybe the son has moved into the home with his girlfriend, and you see where that story is going. And so, is mom being well taken care of? The physical elder abuse, it's very easy to see. Mom would be disheveled, unkempt. She might be losing weight. You can typically see physical elder abuse, even if it's not bruising. We're just talking about complete neglect here. Okay, the harder one to see is financial elder abuse. Okay, and this happens when, let's say, once again, a senior, a mom or a dad, takes one child into their confidence and says, I want you to help me out, but don't you go telling the others how much money I got, so don't tell them anything. That can lead rise to the situation where that child says, oh, nobody knows what I'm going to be doing, and nobody will ever find out. So they start borrowing money. Oh, I'm sure Dad would want me to have this $2,000 to fix my car, otherwise I couldn't drive him to the doctor's office, so on and so forth. The best way to avoid that is, once again, a senior, an elder should have open communication with the family about what they're thinking. And I think you've seen that little lesson, earlier in our talk. I'm sure the viewers have. I know, Marcia, you see everything. But also, any special plans should be spelled out, and go to the next step. If you have a power of attorney, sure, you trust your oldest son, oldest daughter, but let the others see what's going on. Let them see the statements. You don't want them to hear, oh, I'm sorry, Dad lost the statements, maybe threw them out, so we don't have any.
Right.
Let there be oversight. And you'd be surprised. Once again, the thing is that most seniors want their affairs private, and that leads to abuse, or can lead to abuse.
So elder abuse is not just physical. It can be financial, emotional.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. We've had one case where mom lost, we could estimate $15,000 over a period of years, and she wasn't a rich woman. Okay. And it got to the point where her taxes on her house weren't paid because the thief kept draining the bank account dry. Mm-hmm. So it can get serious. Yeah.
Very, very, very serious. And people say, well, that's my son, that's my daughter. Well, but you have to have livelihood somewhere. And if an elderly person is becoming unstable to stay in their home, and they need to transition to assisted living or a senior home, they're counting on the fact that they have money in the bank to say, okay, I can use this money in the bank to initially start my transition. Then they find out they don't have any money in the bank. Then that's another headache. That's another stressful moment. Then the kids running around. One kid mad at the other, and how could you? And it's so much to look into. Between, we think that elder abuse is just physical and emotional, but when you mess with the finances as well, you've walked the plank. There's nothing else left.
Taking away the mom or dad's independence is what you've done. Absolutely.
Right. And when you work, and parents don't realize, when you work all your life and save money, you've given to your kids, you sent them to college, made sure they had, a stable place to live, and blah, blah, blah. The monies that are over the years that's saved for you and I say the key word for you, means that anytime you have a change or transition in life of any kind, you're financially stable to use that money. So I don't understand why young people always feel like, well, that nursing home costs too much, or that private home care duty costs too much. What is the money in the bank for? Oh, the kid think in the future is for me. Even when it comes to burial, some young folks, we don't know who has a policy, a burial policy or not, but the parent may say, well, I have some money set aside for when I leave here, you can bury me properly. You went in and exhausted the money. Now you got to have a GoFundMe account. Okay? I'm trying to be funny, Jim, but I'm just saying, you got to have a GoFundMe account. Okay, well, I got to ask you another question before we wrap, because I know that, we have a group of them, and you got to come back and tell us some more, that. So fill me in on caregivers' legal issues.
Okay, the caregivers' legal issues, we pretty much covered them, but the one we didn't really touch on is, we touch on the children caregivers and the issues that are, could be there, the minefield. The lady in the neighborhood. I always love to hear the lady in the neighborhood. And the problem is, the story goes, the lady in the neighborhood will work for $12 an hour cash under the table. They want to avoid taxes. But here's the issue. Under the law, anybody who works in your house is an employee, and that could even be a child if paid, say on a weekly basis. Anybody who works in your house is an employee. So let's take that lady in the neighborhood. And she's taking a big load of laundry, and she trips and falls down the stairs, and she busts up her knee and shoulder, and she's in the hospital for surgery to get them fixed. And now she will be laid off from work for 3-4 months, who knows how long. Who's going to pay for that? And the answer is mom is, because the lady in the neighborhood is her employee, and that employee is entitled to workers' compensation coverage. And no, her homeowner's policy does not cover employees. So the thing is, if you're going to hire somebody from the neighborhood, I'd advise talking to an accountant or a lawyer about the legal requirements. Otherwise, you could get a nasty surprise at some time down the road.
I wonder how many people know if they're personal caregivers that they do have some legal rights. I don't think people really pay attention. First of all, people are getting cash under the table. They're doing a minimum job, and they may like the neighbor or just say, and I'll look out for it. And they're not expecting to fall down a flight of stairs or to trip over the cat. But if they do have some legal ramifications that they can utilize in their defense.
They sure do.
Okay.
And Marcia, I do want to mention one other area I think is big for everybody. Not just caregivers, seniors, but let's mention Medicare. Okay, I'm going to just grab this is the Medicare and You book. This happens to be last year's model. Am I holding up right?
I see it, Medicare and You.
It is pretty much the same 2021. And there's some tips in here. You wouldn't believe the home health coverage that Medicare provides. And by the way, this is not a lawyer's book. This is for everybody from Medicare. It's free. Home health benefits, you'd be shocked how much you can have in home health benefits that nobody tells you about. And here's another little one. I'm kind of rushing through, running low on time. Okay. Special circumstances enrollment. Let's say that you're in the hospital, maybe you had that slip, fall, hip surgery, knee surgery, whatever. And what if you find out that the prescription costs when you go home are going to be astronomical, and because your plan doesn't cover it? Did you know that if you're in the hospital or nursing home rehab, you can change your Medicare Advantage plan or your prescription plan, and then when you get out of that nursing home or hospital, within the next 3 months, you could change back to your prior plan. Okay, so let's
really?
Another situation. Yeah, another situation. Let's say that Mr. Smith, has hip surgery. Mrs. Smith wants to go see him at the rehab center, but it's 6 miles away, and she doesn't drive. She doesn't. But there's one just a mile from the house. Why can't he go there? Well, that one's not in their Medicare Advantage plan. That's not in their plan.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Mr. Smith could change his insurance's Medicare coverage to include that one that's closer to home. And then 3 months after he gets out of the rehab center and is back home, he can go back to his old plan.
Wow.
Now, I know I just went through it real fast. It's confusing. But once again, if you get the picture, then you get the Medicare new booklet, and it'll explain everything.
I'm gonna have to look up that book, Jim. I think I threw. Think I threw miles away, but I understand. So let me ask you this before we wrap up. On that note about the Medicare plan, can you make the change even if it's after open enrollment, or is it only in that period of open enrollment?
No. Special enrollment.
Special enrollment.
Special enrollment. Any time of year. Anytime.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Well, now, Jim, I've got to go to this famous book here. So most people don't know or have not seen you in a while, but ladies and gentlemen, Jim Schuster always offered this free book, Elder Care Law mini course. So this book is a little smaller than what you normally would get, but you see his information down there. You see his name and phone number. So if you need a copy or want a copy of this lovely book, please feel free to take down the information and give his office a call. Or if you don't give his office a call, you can always call us at 1-800-323-5336. And definitely we will get the information over to you so that you can contact Jim Schuster and get that free book. Because Jim, I got my book right here in the office with me today. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this is the same. Well, we're not going to say the same book, but I like this short version of this book, Jim. Okay. Straight to the point. Okay. Straight to the point.
It really covers what we talked about today, too, in depth. And I think people will find it a wonderful resource.
It is a wonderful resource, and it's free. So people like stuff that's free, but not only is it free, it's knowledgeable. It gives people insight on what they should prepare for. So I'm all into this. I really am. So let me put that book up one more time. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for this book, you can easily call that number yourself. 248-356-3500, and give them your information and they will mail you a book out. And if you miss this information, then you know to go to us at justasktalkshow.org, and we will do the same thing. We will provide you the information. So Jim, will you come back?
Yeah, I'd love to. Anytime.
This Zoom stuff is kind of tricky, but you made it through. You made
Miracle.
it through. Yes. So thank you so much as usual, and I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you again.
Till then.
Okay, and hold that thought. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know who I am. I'm your host, Marsha Florence, with Just Ask Talk Show Podcast Live, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. Jim Schuster has always been a regular with us, and we missed him, so we had to have him come back and enlighten you with some legal information. So don't forget, if you need that book, the brochure, you can actually call us or get that information off the Facebook screen when you see it. I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask. And what do I always say? Oh, first of all, don't forget, October 21st, Eastern Market Shed. We're going to have a great time. You might even see Jim Schuster there. All right? So I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask. And what do I always say? If you know a person with a disability, or if you just have a general question, don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. I'm your host. See you next time.